I'd like to take this opportunity to appreciate the press for this press briefing that we're doing as a CEPO. And this is in line with our call for reforms in the economic and finance sector within the concept of struggling to really respond to this economical crisis that the country is facing. As all of you are aware that CEPO have launched this campaign that we call it as South Sudan is not broke, but some public officials are highly corrupt. So our second press conference in the same campaign, or within this campaign, is focusing on the pathway from economic crisis to economic recovery. What we see as the pathway to really resolve the economic crisis so that we can have economic recovery, and this comes after new leadership is appointed to the financial institutions. As before I've been saying that there's a need to check the financial institutions in terms of their leadership. President have decided on that. He have removed the Minister of Finance, the Acting Commissioner General for Revenue Authority, and the manager of NILPET. Now new persons are in these offices and they have taken oath. And when they took the oath, President have told them very clear, and of course also appreciate His Excellency President in referring back to our calls that have made that you cannot fight corruption without reforming system and practice. And you cannot fight corruption without going into in-depth of exactly what is a corruption. And as a CEPO, we believe that the financial institutions need really a deep reforms for us to manage the economical crisis, whether through the crisis management committee or through these individuals appointed to the ministry. So based on that, they were taking this particular position today to share our concerns or to share our proposal of what we call pathway from economic crisis to economic recovery. This is a pathway that to suggest a productive economical crisis management for regaining economic recovery from the current worst position we're in. Without a concrete and action-oriented defined pathway from economic crisis to economic recovery, the recent leadership changes in the economic and finance sector will not yield any fruitful results. The underlying causes for the current economical crisis is centered on corrupt systems and practices in the economic and finance sector. So even if leadership is changed, as you have said before, still this cannot make a proper reform in the economic sector. So as a CEPO, we have raised the following concerns. And these concerns were divided into the following. One, immediate intervention. And this immediate intervention is referring to the current Minister of Finance, the Acting Commissioner of Revenue Authority, and the manager of NILPET. They, as a new leadership, we need them to take these immediate actions. These are actions that we designed to make sure that quickly the Minister of Finance and National Revenue Authority and NILPET should undertake in order to rescue the country from the economical woes deteriorating situation. We have a specific recommendation to the Minister of Finance for immediate intervention. For the Minister of Finance, number one, the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning should ensure all collected revenue by various institutions of the government that are tasked with the mandate of collecting revenue are being processed in accordance to financial regulations. We're trying to say any revenue collection, whatever the revenue is, by any public institution must be in line with the revenue regulations of this country. And of course, we know that we have regulations. Number two, the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development and Economic Planning should stop the practice of government institutions with revenue collection mandates spending collected revenue without directives of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development. What I'm trying to say is that any person who collects revenue should not spend that revenue until receive directives from Ministry of Finance. 3, encourage banking system for payment of taxes through commercial banks, and also ensure that commercial banks open branches within government institutions that have been tasked to collect revenue on daily basis. What we're trying to say is that the Ministry of Finance will make sure that in the migration, in the traffic, in the CID offices, all offices that have the mandate to collect revenue should have a branch of bank there so that all the payments are done through banking system rather than us paying cash money to traffic police officer or cash money to whoever or even a cash money in the hospital. We have to make sure that that practice is immediately stopped by the Ministry of Finance, and they make sure all revenues are paid through banking system, and commercial banks will establish branches in the institution of revenue collection, even like the assessment, what we call assessment and birth certificate office. We're paying a hell of money there. That money will be paid through banking system. Number 4, stop allocation of financial gifts to individuals from the public treasury. This practice where renowned politicians are getting free money in the name of 5 million or 6 million, whatever they are, should be stopped immediately. Minister of Finance should not this money to any public officials. 5th, which is the last, reform the technical civil servants who have responsibility for financial decisions. We have a feeling that in all the ministries of finance sector or economic sector, there are director generals and there are directors, there are inspectors that have hijacked the state, and they start corrupting the institution. Even if you bring a new minister, you don't remove them, they are still corrupt. So we are asking the new Minister of Finance and Revenue Authority and NALPE to check those technical staff that are corrupt and they observe corruption, because otherwise this means also will find themselves making no difference from the previous successor who have left the ministry. So that is what we want to say to the Minister of Finance. To the National Revenue Authority, one, National Revenue Authority immediately, as from the day of today, stop the use of different revenue collection receipts designed by each government institution. We have seen a practice where each government institution that have a mandate to collect revenue have their own receipt. We are appealing to the Revenue Authority from today, please centralize all those receipts. And once they centralize those receipts, Revenue Authority must be responsible for the production of the receipts and distribution of the receipts to those institutions that are collecting revenue. So any institution collecting revenue, they should receive the receipts for collecting the revenue from the Revenue Authority. Why? Because, you know, any government receipt that is designed for collecting tax, it is a cash money. It's just only a receipt. Because if you get a receipt, other receipt in return is in money. So all the revenue institutions that are collecting, whatever you can name them, should receive those receipts from Revenue Authority, so that Revenue Authority will hold them accountable for not paying back money they have collected in form of receipts, because those receipts are cash. Those receipts are not just paper. So they need to be controlled and they need to be properly distributed. Also, revenue authorities the leaders of the Revenue Authority from today should direct all payments of revenue to be through banking system across the country. And that means also Revenue Authority need to talk to commercial banks to open branches across the country. So revenues be paid through banking system. Number 4, establish units of Revenue Authority in all government institutions with revenue collection mandates. These units should be to control revenue collections and remittance to single bank account. What we're trying to say, Revenue Authority should establish a unit in all the institutions of revenue collection. For example, in migration, does need to have a unit. In traffic, does need to have a unit. In CID, does need to have a unit. In where we're processing our birth certificates and assessment of age, you need to have a revenue unit. So wherever there's a collection of revenue, Revenue Authority must have a focal point, a unit there that control the collection of those revenues and remittance of those revenues through banking system across the country. Then also we're looking at Revenue Authority should also do reforms of its technocratic staffs that are there, because we are worried about that. That is our immediate actions that the leadership of the Revenue Authority need to take, and these immediate actions are prescribing them by the statement of the President, His Excellency President, when they sworn in. President have told them, please go change financial system, change the corrupt practices, and making sure if there's a purpose before you, handle them with care. The word of President, handle them with care, is referring to the best interest of the public. So they must immediately act on this, as we're making an appeal in our campaign of South Sudan is not brought, but there are some senior officials who are highly corrupt. Medium action. These are medium action. We need both institutions to take, Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, and then Revenue Authority. These are actions that focuses on reform of system and practices for enhancing transparency, collection, and remittance of revenue. We need to see that after they're done with this, they should make sure there's a proper systems and practices that enhance transparency on the remittance of revenue, because His Excellency President during the swearing in have told them that people have privatized collection of revenue to become private things. So I think it's a high time now for the leadership of the Ministry of Finance and Revenue Authority to make sure all systems are transparent. And one element of transparency is that make things known to the public. Especially, we really appeal to the leadership of Revenue Authority to adapt the system of former Commissioner Olympia, where you can declare in a month how much money was being collected as a revenue, and then there public can ask Minister of Finance how this money was being used as a medium. But this medium, why we ask for systems and practice to be reformed, because we have the following evidence. Colleagues in the media sector, CEPO has found out the following. This is a very bad practice. For example, we want to use a case study of checkpoints. How much checkpoints are collecting money and how much this money is going to private individuals. If you move across the country, for example, you move from Abyei to Turale, you have 7 checkpoints. You move from Turale to Kwajok, you have 11 checkpoints. Kwajok to Wau, 4 checkpoints. From Wau to Tonj, 4 checkpoints. Tonj to Rumbek, 8 checkpoints. Rumbek to Hiro, 7 checkpoints. From Hiro to Gogorial, 5 checkpoints. From Gogorial to Terekeka, 5 checkpoints. From Terekeka to Juba, 5 checkpoints. In all these checkpoints, you are paying at least £2,000. So you come to realize that we have around 56 checkpoints that are collecting revenue on daily basis against number of trucks. If you see at least a truck that will move in these checkpoints, if they are to pay, at least they will reach to pay amount of money that is really disturbing around 100,000 SSP. Imagine that is on daily basis. One empty truck, you pay that amount of money because you're moving around these checkpoints. So 56 checkpoints, if multiplied by 2,000 per truck, and maybe how many trucks per day, is a hell of money that we're losing to individual pockets. And what these individuals, they call themselves as the following. They call themselves, we are operation, we are fire brigade, we are traffic police, we are migration, we are CID, we are national security. Some of them call gurus left at Habil. So even to remove the rob, you have to pay money for that. So if all this money are collected and in a transparent system, and a better practice is that this money are paid by receipt, because I'm telling you, all these checkpoints, you can pay money 2,000, or even in new site checkpoint at our border with Kenya, you can pay 7,000 SSP, no receipt. They'll tell you we don't have receipts. So how much money are we losing per day without receipts? And that's why we're saying this money, as a system is concerned, receipts must be there. As a practice is concerned, this money must be collected by receipts. As system is concerned, this money must be deposited to a bank, not to be paid to an individual in his hand, and everybody start charging that. And everybody start creating for himself a title, a table. So our private sector is suffering from these 56 checkpoints. These are just a minimum. And if we are to go to investigate other routes that have not been mentioned here, we'll have hundreds of checkpoints. And remember, one day in 2018, I remember Ministry of Interior and even Ministry of Defense and the Presidents have directed the closure of these checkpoints. And if these checkpoints exist only for security purposes, not for collecting money, even Fatahabil. Why do you want Fatahabil and you're paid salary for that Fatahabil? And these are the part of the practice that made our army and our soldiers not to receive salary timely, and they're desperate. They don't have money. Simply because we're losing money that's supposed to go for public treasury, start going to private pockets. So, finally, as CEPO, we're recommending that the Ministry of Finance and National Revenue Authority should take into account this issue of checkpoints by making sure all illegal practices and systems that are being used previously should be stopped through an immediate intervention by the Ministry of Finance and Economic Development, Economic Planning, and then the National Revenue Authority. And I would like to really also say we are interested to submit these findings of ours to the recent established National Economic Crisis Management Committee under His Excellency Vice President Wani Iga. We need to interact on this, and we're happy that the report of the Economic Crisis Management Committee is also finding, it have come up with very clear findings that there's a huge involvement of top public officials deeply into corrupt practices and systems in the country that have made the country lose revenue. Of course, our advocates will work. Our advocates have related to results of the changes that we have seen, that is it. But also, as we said in our advocacy, that is not only changing individuals, even investigation is required into all this, what we term them as a corrupt system and corrupt practices. And that's why when His Excellency Vice President Waniga mentioned that some top government officials are deeply involved in corruption, I expect the Economic Crisis Management Committee to launch investigation against those whom they have spotted them out that they are deeply involved. Because if you don't hold people accountable, then the fight against corruption is not complete. Otherwise, you are complacent by only saying there's this issue of the corruption, but you have not held accountable those who are under the corrupt. And anybody can come and exercise the same practice. The best way is held accountable those who find them corrupt to be a lesson for others not to be corrupt. And that's why with that proper accountability and holding people accountable who are corrupt, still corruption will continue. So we hope that our advocacy will work, and we're not going to keep quiet. As I said, we're going to engage the Economic Crisis Management Committee to take into account, and specifically these checkpoints. We would like that they need to investigate these checkpoints that we have mentioned and make sure who is behind these checkpoints and how much we're losing against these checkpoints that are supposed to come to public treasury, that in return we have collected them as a money to pay our soldiers, to pay our medical service, or to pay even the teachers, so that at least we have social services delivered to our people. So that's why we're saying South Sudan is not broke, but some public officials are highly corrupt. That is our position. That from the one when we launch our campaign of South Sudan is not broke and high officials are corrupt, is that it's not only you change the leaders, investigate them, bring them for trial, because that will be a good lesson for any person coming take leadership after the people. But only leaving them, if you release them and you keep them going free with allegations that they have at their back, then at other person can do it and say the same thing. And actually, people start coming to such offices to corrupt, to get money, because they know once I eat enough, you will keep me without holding me accountable. And everybody now will start campaigning to sit on that seat because to mobilize money. So mobilizing money which are illegal and walking away free with it, it is not a fight against corruption. Whoever mobilizes illegal money should not be allowed to go free with that illegal money. He should be held accountable. So investigation is required. And specifically, I wish this could be one of the strong recommendations of the Economic Crisis Management Committee. We have seen them taking a very positive example, limiting transfer of cash money, that you can't transfer more than $10,000 cash. That one is a very good move. And what also we can say, whoever we feel have things that are not clear, and we feel that you have done corrupt any collection of money or use of public money, should be subject for investigation. So with that, the Crisis Management Committee should open investigations. And even if they wish, I hope that they can also open up a public complaint box for the Crisis Management Committee, so that we can come and complain against those who we know they are corrupt and they don't know that they are corrupt. So that we can put a complaint and want to see that investigation done. For example, I'll give an example. Look at the power company in Juba. The power company in Juba is collecting money in dollars and is not connecting the public. And they've been using public spaces that they construct their service offices. In return, they're supposed to provide the public electricity. But as now I'm speaking with you, Budele Block 9 public space was being used by the company, and the company is bureaucratic, that is charging every single action with money. They want to connect poles, you need to pay. They need to wire, they need to pay. And they become more corrupt that their officials who come to the field want some kickbacks, some bribes. Without the bribes, no power to be connected to the public. So such practices need to be handled by investigation and trial, not only by relieving the people and to go free with it. Because otherwise, even I will learn to become some means of finance so that I can get enough and then I'm dismissed tomorrow. As long as I'm not held accountable, I can go and establish business somewhere. What you have eaten of the public in your stomach, we must pull it out of your stomach through legal procedures.